Hi friends, come on in. Let's grab our coffee and turn to Job chapters 32 and 33. We've been listening to the same back and forth for a while now, and suddenly a new voice steps in. I'm so glad that we are here together for this shift. Up until now, none of Job's three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, or Zophar, would budge. No, they were convinced that Job had to have sinned because in their theology, in their minds, suffering always meant punishment from God. If they admitted that Job was innocent, their whole belief system would fall apart. They'd have to change their minds, admit that they were wrong, and pride got in the way. They couldn't do it. And Job, he wasn't about to lie and say that he sinned just to appease them. He knew his heart was clean before God and he stood his ground. While all this was going on, there was a younger guy named Elihu sitting nearby and kind of eavesdropping on this whole situation. He's been holding it in, but now he can't stay silent anymore. He feels like he has to speak up. In chapter 32, he announces for the whole chapter long that he's frustrated with the older men for not answering Job well. And he says, I'm young, but age doesn't always bring wisdom. I'm going to share what I see. He talks for a whole chapter about how he's going to speak, almost like he is trying to build up some courage. It comes across a little aggressive at first, but then in chapter 33, he finally gets to the point, and it's different from what the others have said thus far. Elihu suggests something new. Maybe the suffering isn't because Job sinned in the past. Maybe the real issue is how Job is responding to the suffering right now. He says Job's words sound like he's putting himself above God, complaining that God isn't answering or being fair. Elihu thinks that God might be using the pain to get Job's attention to correct something in his heart, to keep him from going down the wrong path. Now, suffering is hard. There's no question about that. It's painful, it's confusing, and it can feel endless. But Elihu reminds us that suffering often does have a purpose. God doesn't waste pain. Sometimes he allows it to help us grow, to mature our faith, to make us stronger and more like Jesus. How we respond matters so much. Will we curl up in self-pity, in bitterness, or in despair? Or will we lift our eyes to Christ, remembering that he understands our suffering completely? He's been tempted in every single way that we have been, and yet without sin. Hebrews 4:15. He's near to the brokenhearted, Psalm 34:18, and James 1 verse 2 through 4 tells us to count it all joy when we go through trials because they produce perseverance, and perseverance finishes its work so we can be mature and complete, lacking nothing. Elihu does get one thing wrong though. He says God is trying to answer Job's questions, but Job isn't listening. That's not quite right. God doesn't always explain the why behind our suffering. If we always knew the reason, what would be the point of testing our faith? Faith means trusting, even when we don't understand. Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Isaiah 26:4 tells us to trust in the Lord forever because the Lord himself is the rock eternal. And Psalm 115 verse 11 says, You who fear him, trust in the Lord. He is their help and shield. Sometimes the deepest growth happens in the quiet, when we simply say, Lord, I don't get it, but I trust you. That's where real faith shines. Elihu's perspective isn't perfect, but it's a breath of fresh air after all the blame. Suffering isn't always punishment. It can be a classroom, a refiner's fire, a place where God draws us closer to himself. If you're in a hard season right now and the why feels loud, I'm sorry. You are not alone. Jesus gets it. He's near. Trust him one step at a time. He is faithful. Thank you for joining me as we keep walking through Job together. If Elihu's words or that reminder to trust stirred something in you, would you share this video with someone who might need the same encouragement today? God willing, I will see you tomorrow for the next chapters. Until then, keep trusting even when you don't understand, and know that you are deeply, deeply loved. Shalom, shalom.